Well, a pattern is beginning to emerge with one Angel.
The story of Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky has taken a dramatic turn, leaving fans stunned and critics circling like sharks. Once celebrated as a rising star with unmatched swagger, Reese now finds herself at the center of a storm that questions her loyalty, leadership, and future in the league. It isn't just about missed games or questionable decisions. It's about the message her actions sent to teammates, coaches, and the fans who believed in her. Walking away when the team needed her most has become more than a headline. It's a symbol of betrayal that sparks heated debates. Across social media and sports talk shows,
Rookie season, Chicago Sky. Team's going nowhere, not making the playoffs, could have played through it, could have opted for surgery in the offseason, said, nope, I'm done here. Take me out now. Quit on the team last year.
Every move, from her public statements to the silent updates on her social media accounts, feels like fuel on the fire. The real question is simple. Has Angel Reese permanently damaged her reputation? Or can she claw her way back?
Unrivaled. Team looks like absolute trash. Don't have a chance to win it all. Angel Reese says, nope, I'm done here. Quit on that team. Now, ironically enough, in that situation, the Mist went on to win the Unrivaled Championship without Angel Reese.
When people talk about Angel Reese's career, the conversation often starts with her potential. From her days at LSU to her entry into the WNBA, Reese carried the reputation of being a fierce competitor who could dominate the paint and electrify crowds. But in Chicago, that promise has become clouded by a growing pattern that critics argue overshadows her talent. The controversy centers on one theme: walking away. To truly understand why her recent decision to abandon her team sparked such outrage,
Angel Reese's sophomore season. Calls out her teammates, throws Courtney Vandersloot under the bus, driving the bus herself, calls out the front office, tells Coach Tyler Mars to coach her harder. She gets suspended for the first half of a game against the Las Vegas Aces. But Angel Reese says, nah, you guys aren't going to suspend me. I'm going to quit on you instead. I'm just going to quit on this team.
You have to rewind the clock and track how this narrative has built over time. Her rookie season with the Chicago Sky was supposed to be the foundation of something great. Instead, it ended with frustration and whispers of immaturity. The Sky weren't contenders, and as the season wound down, Reese made the call to shut herself down early. Many athletes play through pain or save surgery for the offseason, but Reese opted to step away midstream. For loyal fans who endured a losing season, it felt like the rising star they believed in chose herself over the grind. That decision alone might have been forgiven with time. Plenty of rookies struggle to balance expectations and health. But the following year, Reese's stint with the Unrivaled League threw gasoline on the fire. The team was floundering, the championship was out of reach, and Reese again decided she had seen enough. She stepped away, leaving teammates to finish the season without her. The cruel irony for her critics came when her team went on to win the Unrivaled Championship without her on the floor. To skeptics, it confirmed a damning narrative. Maybe she wasn't the asset she claimed to be. Maybe she was the anchor dragging them down. Fast forward to her sophomore season back in the WNBA, and the spotlight only grew harsher. Reese called out her teammates publicly, pointing fingers at veterans like Courtney Vandersloot and criticizing the front office. She even told her coach, Tyler Marsh, to coach her harder, a request that many saw as deflection rather than accountability. Instead of rallying her squad, it fractured trust inside the locker room. Then came the breaking point, a suspension that was supposed to last half a game. Rather than serve it and move on, Reese shocked everyone by sitting out completely, refusing to even step on the floor. To fans, it wasn't discipline, it was abandonment.
Angel Reese quit rookie year, quit in Unrivaled, and quit yet again sophomore season of the WNBA. She is officially over the Chicago Sky.
This series of exits paints a picture her critics won't let go. Rookie season cut short, Unrivaled season abandoned, sophomore campaign marked by quitting mid. To them, the pattern isn't coincidental, it's who she is. And in professional sports, where reputations matter just as much as skill, a player known for bailing on her team is dangerous too. Trust. The first chapter of this saga sets the stage for the firestorm she now faces. If walking away has defined her past, how much damage has it already done to her future? The fallout grows clearer when you look at how the suspension incident unraveled in real time.
I don't know if the Chicago Sky did their due diligence on the type of person/player Angel Reese was coming into the league. They thought they were going to get the one up on her, saying, hey, we're going to suspend you the first half. And Angel Reese said, no, you don't get the one up on me. That's not how this is going to play out. I'm going to get the one up on you. I'm going to come out looking like the one that played you guys. I'm going to come out looking like the one that says, I know what you guys are trying to do here. I'm just going to quit on you fools instead. And
the suspension incident against the Las Vegas Aces was supposed to be a minor storyline, the kind of disciplinary hiccup that players face and quickly move past. Instead, it exploded into one of the most talked about controversies of Angel Reese's career, largely because of how she handled it. Rather than serving her punishment quietly and stepping back onto the court to prove a point with her play, Reese doubled down in a way that shocked even her supporters. She chose not just to sit for half the game as the Chicago Sky had outlined, but to remove herself entirely, sending a public message that the team could not control her.
Angel Reese removed Chi-Town Barbie from her Instagram. Yeah, she's gone, they say. She is gone.
For a franchise already struggling to balance egos and rebuild its chemistry, the optics were disastrous. From the outside, the decision looked calculated. The Sky thought they had sent a signal by benching Reese for half a game, showing her that accountability applied to everyone, regardless of star power. But Reese flipped the script, effectively saying, "You can't suspend my quit on you first." This public tug-of-war immediately became bigger than basketball. Instead of letting the narrative stay in the coach's hands, Reese positioned herself as the one in control, which some fans saw as defiance worth admiring but most labeled selfishness that damaged the team. The confusion grew worse when reports of a back injury surfaced. According to the team, Reese was unavailable due to recurring pain, but sharp-eyed observers noticed something troubling. She had been seen warming up before the game, moving with ease, no brace in sight, and even participating in shoot. For many, the injury explanation looked less like medical reality and more like a convenient cover for a player making a stand. The whispers of faking it spread quickly across social media, fueling cynicism and leaving teammates caught in the middle of a storm they didn't create. Head coach Tyler Marsh tried to diffuse the tension in press conferences, insisting the staff was hopeful Reese would play and that she had looked fine in warm-ups. But his cautious tone did little to calm the waters. If anything, it raised more questions. Was Reese refusing to follow team orders? Was she manipulating the situation to make the Sky look foolish? Or was she genuinely struggling with an injury that fans simply didn't believe? For teammates, the suspension debacle wasn't just about one game, it was about trust. Basketball is a sport where chemistry matters as much as raw skill, and the sense that Reese could walk away at any moment created unease. Veterans and young players alike depend on reliability, especially when fighting through a grueling season. Watching Reese remove herself from the biggest stage against the defending champions sent an unspoken message. Her priorities weren't aligned with theirs. This moment became the spark that set the larger firestorm ablaze. What started as a disciplinary action ballooned into questions of character, loyalty, and commitment. And if the suspension showed cracks in her relationship with the team, the ripple effects would expose even deeper fractures inside the locker room. If the suspension raised eyebrows, Angel Reese's own words turned the situation into a full-blown crisis inside the Chicago Sky locker room. Professional sports thrive on unity, and when the outside noise gets loud, players usually circle the wagons and keep internal issues private. Reese chose a different path. She went public with sharp criticism of her own teammates and the organization, a move that magnified every existing tension. The most explosive example came when she singled out veteran guard Courtney Vandersloot, essentially putting the blame for the team's struggles on someone who has long been respected as a steady leader. That wasn't just a jab at a teammate, it was a challenge to the entire leadership structure of the Sky. For a young player still carving out her reputation, such comments carried heavy consequences. Instead of being seen as someone who elevates the group, Reese was portrayed as a disruptive force, unwilling to shoulder her share of accountability. Teammates who had once been willing to mentor her were now faced with a dilemma. Do they confront her and risk dividing the room even further, or stay silent and allow resentment to grow? In a league where locker rooms are small, relationships tight-knit, and reputations spread quickly. Her decision to air grievances publicly was viewed as a massive miscalculation. The criticism didn't stop with players. Reese also turned her focus toward the front office, questioning the way the team was managed and even suggesting that her head coach, Tyler Marsh, needed to coach her harder on the surface. That request might sound like a player hungry to improve, but context matters. Coming on the heels of missed games, suspensions, and public feuds, the comment came across as deflection, shifting blame for her struggles onto others instead of taking ownership. The message was clear: if she wasn't thriving, it was because the people around her weren't doing enough. This approach may have worked in college, where star power can overshadow almost everything else, but in the professional ranks, it only reinforced her critics' claims that she was immature and self-centered. Coaches and executives expect young players to adapt, grow, and respect the chain of command, not flip it upside down. By publicly undermining her team, Reese essentially isolated herself from the very people she needed most to rebuild her image. Fans could sense the fracture. 2. When word spread about her calling out Vandersloot and questioning the organization, the online chatter became merciless. Many accused her of burning bridges she hadn't even finished building, pointing out that rookies and sophomores rarely survive long in the league when they gain a reputation for being difficult. Others argued that her actions showed a lack of humility, suggesting she believed her brand and platform were bigger than the franchise itself. The damage inside the locker room was undeniable. Even if teammates smiled for cameras or kept quiet in interviews, trust is fragile, and once it's broken, every practice and every huddle feels different. Reese's words didn't just sting in the moment, they lingered, creating a wedge that widened with each passing game. And just as relationships inside the sky were unraveling, the outside world began noticing the subtle signals on her social media that hinted at something even bigger brewing. While the locker room strained under the weight of public criticism, Angel Reese added another layer of intrigue by sending subtle but unmistakable signals through her social media. In the modern sports landscape, Instagram bios and deleted photos are more than personal updates, they're statements. Reese knew that, and her online activity only fueled speculation that her time with the Chicago Sky was nearing an end. The most glaring move came when she removed the moniker Chi-Town Barbie from her bio. For months, that nickname had been tied to her Chicago identity, a way of blending her brand with the city she represented. Scrubbing it from her profile wasn't just housekeeping, it looked like a rejection of the Sky and everything connected to them. Almost overnight, fans noticed the change and drew their own conclusions. Reese wasn't just frustrated, she was cutting ties in real time at the same time. She rebranded her profile to spotlight other ventures. Now, the focus was on titles like Bayou Barbie, her foundation work, and her role as owner of DC Power FC. To casual observers, it might have looked like an athlete diversifying her image. To her critics, it was proof that basketball had become secondary to business. And in the middle of a season where her availability and commitment were already under fire, this shift was interpreted as another abandonment. Then came the podcast chatter. Reese had previously teased a show called Unapologetically, but fans began wondering if she'd revive it to air out grievances. Against the Sky, commentators speculated that, instead of addressing issues with teammates and coaches privately, she might take the drama public in her own controlled space, whether intentional or not. The timing of these whispers gave off the impression that she was more interested in building content around controversy than fixing the controversy itself. Supporters tried to defend her, arguing that every athlete is entitled to personal branding and multiple income streams. But context is everything. When a player is thriving on the court, off-court ventures are celebrated. When a player is missing games, feuding with teammates, and sparking questions about effort, those same ventures become ammunition for critics who claim her priorities are misaligned. The conversation spiraled further when fans began connecting her brand decisions with her on-court choices. Was her removal of Chi-Town Barbie a quiet protest against the organization? Was she using her foundation and podcast as fallback options because she knew her Chicago chapter was ending? Or was it simply a young star asserting independence in the only way she knew how? The ambiguity kept the spotlight burning hotter, and with every online move, the perception of abandonment deepened. In a league where image and reputation matter as much as stats, Reese's digital rebranding painted a picture of a player already halfway out the door. And while fans debated the meaning behind her posts, the roar of online reaction grew louder, dragging her deeper into a storm of public scrutiny. If social media hints stirred curiosity, the public reaction that followed turned Angel Reese's situation into a full-blown spectacle. Fans, pundits, and even former players joined the conversation, creating a digital pylon that amplified every misstep. In today's sports culture, perception often matters more than facts, and Reese found herself at the center of a narrative she couldn't control. The backlash was swift. On Twitter, hashtags questioning her leadership and commitment trended for days. Memes mocked her quitting pattern, with side-by-side images of her exits from Chicago, the unrivaled league, and now another suspension standoff. Comments flooded in, branding her as unreliable, selfish, and more interested in building a brand than chasing championships. Some went further, accusing her of being a locker room cancer, language that, while harsh, stuck because it echoed long-standing doubts about her maturity. Media outlets seized the story, framing it as a cautionary tale of a young star derailed by ego. Sports talk shows dissected her every move, her public criticisms of teammates, her social media rebranding, and her refusal to play through suspension. Each segment ended with the same pointed question: if she abandons teams this often, why would any franchise trust her again? Even sympathetic voices struggled to defend her choices when the optics leaned so heavily toward selfishness. The reaction wasn't limited to outsiders. Within the fan base, division grew sharp. Some Sky supporters felt betrayed, venting frustration over season tickets wasted on a star who seemed to prioritize herself over the team. Others, loyal to Reese's charisma and unapologetic personality, argued she was simply being targeted because of her confidence and refusal to conform. That split mirrored a larger cultural debate. Is she a young player, unfairly demonized, or someone who refuses to learn accountability? Meanwhile, rival fans took every opportunity to pile on. Clips of her past controversies resurfaced, from her LSU suspension to accusations of diva-like behavior during Unrivaled. Each incident was stitched together into highlight reels that painted her as a serial quitter. The more these narratives spread, the harder it became for Reese to shake the perception that this wasn't an isolated incident, but a pattern that defined her. Even sponsors felt the heat. Online chatter questioned whether her shoe deal and endorsements were safe as criticism mounted. For a player building a brand as aggressively as Reese, this was dangerous territory. In sports, sponsors crave visibility, but shy away from controversy that alienates fans. The louder the outrage grew, the more people speculated that her off-court ventures could suffer the same. Fate as her on-court reputation, public opinion had turned into a tidal wave, and whether fair or not, it threatened to drown out her actual talent. The constant ridicule and doubt weren't just about missed games, they became symbols of a player losing control of her story. And as the noise grew louder outside the locker room, pressure began to mount on the Sky's front office to decide whether keeping her was worth the turmoil. While the drama played out publicly, the Chicago Sky front office faced a far more practical problem: what to do with Angel Reese. No matter how viral the outrage became, management still had to weigh her contract, trade value, and long-term role with the franchise. The answers weren't simple, and every option came with risk. First, there was her rookie deal. In the WNBA, rookie contracts are structured tightly, leaving teams with significant control but little flexibility. Reese still had years left under that deal, which meant the Sky couldn't just cut her without consequences. Waiving a high-profile player would not only create a media storm, but also reflect poorly on an organization that drafted her with hopes of building around her. Keeping her, however, risked further locker room discord and damaged chemistry. It was the definition of being stuck between a rock and a hard place. The trade market, at least in theory, provided an escape hatch. But what was Reese's value? On one hand, she was young, talented, and carried undeniable star power. Her name drew clicks, sold jerseys, and brought attention in ways many players simply couldn't. On the other hand, the reputation she was building as someone who abandoned teams scared off potential suitors. No general manager wants to gamble draft picks or key players on someone seen as unreliable. Rumors swirled about possible offers, but most were described as underwhelming second-round picks or low-level role players. Hardly the kind of return Chicago envisioned when they drafted her. Another option floated was the expansion draft. With new franchises entering the league, the Sky could theoretically expose Reese and let another team take the gamble. That would free Chicago from the headache, but also send a public message. They were giving up on their young star entirely. For a league trying to grow and capture new audiences, a move that drastic could backfire. The optics of a team washing its hands of a marketable player might have been just as damaging as keeping her behind closed doors. Executives also had to consider the business side. Reese wasn't just a basketball player, she was a brand. Her presence drew media attention and boosted ticket sales, even when the coverage was negative. Some argued that losing her would hurt financially, especially if the team failed to replace her with another marketable star. Others countered that drama doesn't translate to wins, and that in the long run, a fractured locker room would cost them more than any short-term spike in revenue. At the core of every option was one unavoidable truth: trust. Could the Chicago Sky trust Reese to buy in, stay disciplined, and prioritize the team over herself? Every missed game, every cryptic social media post, and every public criticism made that question harder to answer. And while the front office debated scenarios and contingencies, another factor was quietly shaping the story, the one thing that had already caused so much controversy: the recurring injury narrative that many fans no longer believed. The so-called back injury quickly became one of the most polarizing parts of Angel Reese's story. Injuries are supposed to earn sympathifans, understand the physical toll of professional basketball, but in Reese's case, the timing and optics created more skepticism than compassion. Each time conflict arose, the injury seemed to surface, and critics pounced on the coincidence. Before the Las Vegas game, reports circulated that she was unavailable due to lingering back pain. Yet cameras caught her warming up, moving fluidly, and taking shots without any sign of discomfort. No brace, no hesitation, no visible struggle. To the naked eye, she looked ready to play. When head coach Tyler Marsh addressed the media, he admitted the team had prepared as though she'd be active, only to be told otherwise at the last minute. That contradiction raised red flags, leaving observers to wonder if the injury was real or an excuse. The skepticism only grew when she sat out the season finale as well, again citing back issues. Fans questioned how she could warm up in full uniform, appear healthy, and then pull out right before tip-off. Social media erupted with accusations of faking it to protest her suspension and conflict with the team. The phrase "convenient injury" became shorthand for what many saw as her way of quitting, without officially saying so, in an era where every clip spreads instantly. The visuals of her shooting around before games did more damage than any press release could repair. This narrative is particularly damaging in the WNBA, where durability and toughness are valued as much as skill. Players who fight through pain earn respect, while those who appear to dodge accountability face harsh judgment. Fair or not, Reese's absences fell into the latter category. Instead of being viewed as a young star managing her health, she was branded as someone hiding behind injury claims when the pressure spiked, of course. It's important to note that back injuries are notoriously tricky. Pain can flare unexpectedly, and medical conditions aren't always visible. But once public trust is broken, explanations stop landing. For Reese, that trust had eroded so much that fans no longer gave her the benefit of the doubt. Every time her name appeared on an injury report, it was met with eye rolls instead of concern. Inside the locker room, the situation was just as complicated. Teammates had to balance professionalism with frustration. When one player sits out under questionable circumstances, the rest are left carrying the load, and resentment builds quietly. Even if some believed her, the shadow of doubt was enough to strain relationships further. A team that was already fractured by public criticism now had another wedge. Driving them apart, the recurring injury storyline wasn't. Just about whether she could play it became symbolic of the bigger question haunting her career. Was Angel Reese truly committed to the grind of professional basketball? That question loomed larger with every game she missed, setting the stage for a high-stakes finale that would determine how this chapter with Chicago would be remembered. All the swirling drama, the suspensions, the locker room tension, the social media rebranding. The injury skepticism came to a head as the Chicago Sky approached their season finale. The September 11th matchup against the Las Vegas Aces wasn't just another game. It was framed as a referendum on Angel Reese's future. Would she show up, play hard, and silence critics with her performance? Or would she double down on her silent protest, confirming the narrative that she had abandoned her teammates when they needed her most? The stakes couldn't have been higher. For the Sky organization, the game represented an opportunity to finish the season with pride. No matter how messy things had become behind the scenes, for fans, it was a chance to see if their young star still had any loyalty left to the city that embraced her. And for Reese, it was more than just a regular season closer. It was a crossroad moment that could either stabilize or completely derail her professional reputation. In the build-up to tip, speculation dominated headlines. Analysts debated whether she would dress at all. Reporters replayed footage of her warming up in previous games, questioning whether the back injury excuse would resurface. Teammates kept their answers diplomatic in interviews, but their body language spoke volumes. They were tired of addressing a storyline that overshadowed the team's actual basketball. The uncertainty hung over every practice and press conference, creating an atmosphere thick with tension. If Reese chose to sit again, the symbolism would be hard to ignore. Fans would interpret it as confirmation that she had quit on the Sky, prioritizing her personal battles over collective goals. It would also give critics ammunition to argue that the organization had no choice but to move on. But if she took the court, there was still a chance, however slim, that she could begin repairing the damage. A strong performance against the defending champions might not erase the controversies, but it would at least remind everyone of her talent and potential. Beyond that single game, the bigger question loomed: what comes next? Reese's relationship with Chicago seemed irreparably broken. Even if she suited up for the finale, the trust between player, team, and fan base had been shattered. The front office had difficult choices ahead. Should they double down and try to rebuild around her, or explore trades and expansion draft scenarios to cut ties before the damage spread further? For Reese herself, the season finale marked more than an ending, it marked a beginning of a new chapter. Would she embrace accountability, repair her reputation, and prove that she could balance her brand with team loyalty? Or would she continue down the path of defiance, betting that her off-court presence was strong enough to overshadow her on-court controversies? By the time the final buzzer sounded, one thing was clear: Angel Reese's story with the Chicago Sky had become bigger than basketball. The outcome of this game and the choices she made around it would echo far beyond the scoreboard, shaping the narrative of her career for years to come. The saga of Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky has become one of the most polarizing stories in recent WNBA memory. What began as a promising career filled with swagger and star power has now spiraled into a cautionary tale of fractured trust, public backlash, and questions about commitment. The repeated exits, the suspension standoff, the public criticisms, and the social media signals have all created a portrait of a player at odds with her team and herself. Yet, even in the midst of chaos, Reese still holds undeniable talent and influence qualities that can either save her career or sink it further. The decision now lies in her hands: double down on defiance and brand building, or step up with accountability and prove she can lead as well as entertain. For Angel Reese, the next chapter will decide whether she's remembered as a cautionary figure or a comeback story.